Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Trigology. I wasn't going to say anything about this Blue Origin fiasco, but so many people ask me about it. I might as well give my opinion right here. But first, let's talk about Peru. Did you know that in May, Peru's government passed a law classified transgenderism as mental disorder? For a lot of us without that type of mental illness, that was good news. But the bad news is that because hundreds of people had protested the move outside of the health ministry on May 17th, the International Day Against Homophobia, Transphobia, and Biphobia. That's crazy. They got a day for everything. They said, quote, "We demand the repeal of this transphobic and violent decree, which goes against our trans identities." Peru announced that it will stop classifying transgender identities as mental disorder. What? Did they really give up under the mob's pressure? Well, not so fast. The health ministry said that transgender people will instead be described as having gender discordance. The term gender discordance is sometimes used in place of terms like gender identity disorder or gender dysphoria. In essence, it describes a situation where a person's internal sense of self doesn't align with their biological sex. Sounds familiar? And they did that to ensure universal access to mental health treatment. So, you're still being considered as mentally ill. I'm glad to see the government of Peru using the same euphemism technique on them. To me, the bad news is that they did not stick with calling a spade, but had to dress it up to be more acceptable or to make it acceptable. They said, quote, "We are not mentally ill and we do not suffer from mental disorder." Well, I hate to break it to you. A crazy person doesn't have the cognitive capacity to know that he or she is crazy. If anything, we should see them as victims of the dark force operating in this world. What they need the most is our prayer. We should be praying for them. Now, let's talk about Blue Origin, shall we? To me, that thing was a stunt. Fake like the mainstream media, fake like NASA. It was a joyride. I mean, literally, look at the shape of the racket. 6 women dressed up like the Fantastic Four. Well, now I guess you can make it the Fantastic Six. That was so insulting to people's intelligence. And it was obvious that Katy Perry did not stick to the script. She spent most of the time in front of a camera with her little flower that loss of gravity had zero effect on. Or was the flower the indicator that this was nothing more than a charade? Just asking. Instead of looking outside of the window to look at Earth from a perspective that most people will never get to see, she was too busy taking selfies. That was definitely not a normal reaction. The other thing that bothered me is this. You only spent 3 minutes in high altitude to come back down to kiss the ground. What a theatrical scene. Bad acting. Bad acting. And now she's getting sued for not sticking to the plane by Jeff Bezos. Just because she opened the door before he could have done anything. These fantasy trips have lost all credibility because of her. And Jeff, he's not playing. He wants to be compensated for these gun investors. Hang on tight. It's getting worse. The worst part is Katy Perry blaming her getting cooked by the internet of sexism or misogyny. You can't make this stuff up, man. She said, quote, imagine getting dragged for inspiring young women to explore space. She's insinuating that she's being dragged for being a woman, not because of her irrelevant or out of space interview, pun intended, or the fact that she's a terrible actor, not because she looked like a fool back there. Oh no, it's because I'm a woman. So yeah, this was just a $1 billion influencer stunt. And that's my take on that. Now let's talk about the Black Hawk helicopter crash. 3 soldiers are dead, plus 67 people that were on the airplane that she crashed into. I hope that you guys can learn something from this. The thing is that she was aware of that plane even before they took flight. The air traffic controllers informed Rebecca and the instructor that there was a passenger airplane nearby. They acknowledged it and requested for a flyby visual separation, which allows aircraft to avoid collisions by navigating themselves around other aircraft and not relying on air traffic control for guidance. What could go wrong, right? After all, it's just her annual flight evaluation. But she would not listen to her instructor, asking her to change course before the crash happened. Yeah, I know what I'm doing. Don't tell me what to do. Don't try to control my life mindset. Ended in a fatal crash just because your instructor was a man and you wouldn't listen. That's what happens when you're subscribed to extreme feminist ideology that you don't need a man, that a man cannot tell you what to do. Let this be a wake-up call. Ladies and gentlemen, I'll leave it at that. As always, thank you for your time, and I'll see you in the next one.